Hola, buenos días. Good morning. Let's start. I'm going to speak in English to make life easier to our Portuguese friends. But if you don't understand anything I'm saying, just let me know. I'll try to explain it differently. And we are here to talk about what's different in handling media resources or media assets in Drupal 8 compared to other versions of Drupal. My name is Marcos. Well, the slides will be are online. I'll give you the links later on. So apparently we have some problems with the video, but hopefully most of the important parts are going to be centered. So I live in Barcelona. I have been doing Drupal development as a freelance for quite some years right now. I have recently started collaborating with, you can't see, but the company is called Lullabot. It's a US-based company specialized in Drupal development. And if you check the slides later on, you can find some more information about how to contact me if you need any further information. Let's start with what's really important from this session today. If you have to leave and forget everything but one single thing, this is the first and the most important thing you have to remember. And it deals with, it concerns the Drupal module called Media in Drupal 7. Let's just check who of you have experimented or tested or used the Media module in Drupal 7. Anyone? Okay. I don't know how the experience was. I have also used it, and the experience was not that good. And this is the thing that we need to change. Media in Drupal 8 is not related to the media module in Drupal 7. It's not only, or at least it's not the same experience. So whatever the experience you had with Drupal 7, just forget it. Let's start over. And Drupal 8, it's a new concept. In this session, we're going to start checking what are the common needs that people need to solve when dealing with media assets? To solve these needs, which solutions are in Drupal core? Which other solutions are in contrib modules? And in the end, I'll leave some resources for getting more information. And if we have time, some question and answers. So people working with this set of modules, they did a research, I think it was in DrupalCon Prague, more or less. They asked a lot of Drupal developers their experience about what were the common needs for Drupal projects when it comes to handling media assets. And these were the most voted ones. So normally people want to have multiple file uploads. They normally want to reuse either files they already uploaded or any other assets they have on their web. People normally need or normally want a global and a per user media library. It's a common requirement as well to have the ability to integrate with remote media. Let me just have a short parenthesis here. When we say local and remote, we are referring to what's hosted on the web server, on the same server where the web is hosted. So a local image is an image that's been served from your web server, and a remote media is hosted elsewhere. So it's also very common to need to embed media assets in WYSIWYG areas, and we normally want as well to apply advanced effects to images, cropping, rotating, and scaling, and so on. Does this sound for any of you? Do you more or less agree that this is a common set of needs that Drupal projects often face? So this is what the Media Initiative wants to address and wants to give answers to. Most of them, or at least, no, not most, but a good part of them is already solved in Drupal core. Let's start with some of them. I don't know if you know this changed from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8. A normal widget for image uploading is now a multi-upload widget. It's not very clear if you don't know, if you are not going to guess it, but it works. You can either select multiple files, or you can just drop multiple files to the image widget, and it's going to understand that this field is going to have multiple values with these files. Also in Drupal core, we have now the ability, probably all of us know here that CK editor is in Drupal core right now. And it comes with an embed image button that allows us to create a basic embedding experience for images that we're going to upload to the server. We can align, we can create a caption. It's very basic, but it works in most cases where the need is just to embed images to the WYSIWYG. Also, we have in admin content. Before with Drupal core, we just had content and comments. Now we have a third tab, which is files, and it shows us all files that are uploaded to our server. It's a view, as most of the administrative lists in Drupal 8, so we can customize it if we want. And it also presents us this nice file usage information, where we can track where our files are being used in our site. It works also for files that are embedded into WYSIWYG areas. So everything is ready. All this is ready. Also, I don't know if you faced this before. Until Drupal 7, images or files that were not attached or were not being used to any entity or module generically, they were cleaned, they were wiped out after 6 hours, and this was not configurable. It was always this value. Now you can configure this value, and you can also disable it if you want to allow orphaned files in your file system. So all this is ready to use, but it has some limitations. We cannot reuse the files we have uploaded. We cannot convert files easily into entities and adding fields to them, or use the metadata attached to the files. If we are uploading something that's not an image, out of the box from Drupal core, the support is very limited. The media library is just a list of files. The embedding is just for images, and we don't have any support for remote media. So to solve this, as it happens often with in Drupal, we have contrib that gives us what we are missing from Drupal core. There was a moment in time that people considered to be an inflection point, a decisive moment where they started to consider that from this moment on, media in Drupal 8 is different. And this was in Drupal Camp, in New York Camp 2014, where they decided to change the underlying architecture dealing with media. And now the architecture is based on individual components instead of having a big module that does everything, like media in Drupal 7. Now we have different modules, one for each component, one for each functionality, that can be used together and combined and extended to solve a specific problem. And then we stop assuming use cases, and then we leave to the user or to the developer or to the site builder the task to assemble the parts together. And also it enhances collaboration and using solutions that are already available in the Drupal community, like we are going to see some examples in a moment. This opens us a new scenario where instead of one module, we have many modules. And we are going to cover some of them. I have divided them here in some categories. Some modules are more related to how the entities or the media assets are stored, or how am I going to model my entity manipulation in Drupal. Some are more dealing to how am I going to use these assets. Some are specifically for WYSIWYG embedding. And some other modules are just helpers to make our lives easier. Here we can see a brief overview of the most important modules that configure what we could call the media initiative in Drupal 8. You can see that instead of one module, we have a bunch of them. And let's go into some more details about some of them that we can see how they can help us. This first one, I'm not going to stay a long time here. I don't know if you are familiar with this module. Has anyone used it? It's a solution if we want to have our files being delivered from another file system that is not our own server. So if we want, for example, our images to be served from Amazon S3, this is a very good alternative for, instead of serving them from the server, to serve them from an external service. The first one that's really related to the media management is file entity. You probably know it if you used media in Drupal 7. Media depended on file entity in Drupal 7. The file entity in Drupal 8 is a direct port, meaning that the same functionalities we had before, we have now. And what it basically does is it extends the file entities in Drupal, making them fieldable. And now we can create bundles, types of files, and attach fields, and use them as any other entity in Drupal using views, tokens, entity API, etc. Of course, it has some limitations. It's restricted to local files, meaning files that are stored on the server. And we cannot use some advanced functionality. Yeah, it's not written there, we cannot see, but like capturing or mapping the metadata related to this file into entity fields. We're going to see an example in a while. But it's this solution is okay. If you just need files, local files, if you just need to add fields to the files and consider them as a full entity in Drupal, it's a working solution. But a more advanced alternative is media entity. Media entity is basically a new layer where we consider Drupal will see any media asset as an entity, and then the media entity module is responsible for dealing with where the media itself is stored. It can be a local image, it can be a YouTube video, a tweet, doesn't matter. For Drupal, they are all entities, and this makes many things easier on the site building side. The media entity module is just an API. Other modules implement providers, which are types of media entities. We are going to see examples in a while. We can now map metadata to fields. We're going to see some examples. We can now have specific validation that deals with each type of media. For example, an image media type may have different validation rules than a YouTube media type. This module ships with a built-in global media library, which is also a view. Here I have listed some current examples of modules that are already available and being used to create these media entities. I don't know if you see here. You might have seen this before. The video embed field module already existed since a long time, and instead of creating a new solution, the maintainers of the module are collaborating with the media initiative, and they have created an integration that this module now can be used to provide a remote video media entity, and which is great because then we can use any provider or any video provider that this module supports to create media entities in Drupal. what I said before from the metadata mapping. This is an example of the image media entity type. We can say here when we are creating the media type or the bundle that we can map, we want to use the EXIF information, and this allows us to then map all these metadata to real fields on our media entity. This is populated automatically when the entity is saved. We're going to see a demo here. Let's see if we have internet. This is an example of a Twitter media type. I am creating, sorry, I don't know if it's clear. I have created the basic field that is the URL that's going to be used to fetch the tweet content. But I also created two extra fields. One is I'm going to retrieve the retweet count from the Twitter API and the raw content, the text content of the tweet. And I'm going to map these automatically to these fields. I just select here that this metadata is going to be saved in these entity fields, and then I can create some test entity just to make sure that's working. In this case, I copy the tweet URL, I paste it there. I leave the other fields blank. Here I am also demoing the fact that the Twitter understands what's a valid tweet URL because it has its own validation rules. So I need to put a valid URL, then it accepts. And now you can see that our retweet count was populated and the text was also populated to its custom field. It's very powerful if we want to deal with metadata in our entity fields. As I said before, it comes with a basic view that lists all our media entities. The beauty here is that now, being everything an entity, they will all have the same properties. They all have a thumbnail. They all have a type. They all have the same. We are going to deal with them in the same way. Up until here, the storage part of the media handling, but an important part is the end user, the content creator, the editors, how they are going to deal and interact with these media entities. And here it comes the entity browser module. I don't know if you have used it or if you have heard of it. Anyone? Yeah. I have put it in a single slide, big, because it's probably one of the most important parts of this ecosystem. It's probably also one of the most complex because it has many moving parts, but it's worth giving a look. Let's start with a demo. In this case, the demo is, I want to be able to upload multiple files and reuse files that are already uploaded before. So in this case, I have these two options available. I am going to drop some files from my local system in order to upload them at once. I can reorder them before continuing. Then I'm going to select some files already existing on the system. This is a view. I can customize this view as much as I want. I'm going to select two files, reorder them again. Then I'm going to upload another one again because I forgot it the first time. And then I'm going to reorder it again. And when I click Use Selected, then the entity browser passes to the field widget all these values in the right order, and now it's just a normal field in Drupal. So that showed us that this can be used as a very generic tool to browse, search, select, and also create entities without having to leave the context. Meaning that if I am creating a node and I need to deal with images, I can either select, upload, and do whatever I need to do with the images without having to leave the page that I am editing at this point. Its name is Entity Browser because it deals with Drupal entities, meaning that it's very powerful and it will understand any Drupal entity in a very abstract way. It can be used in different contexts, like we have just seen a field using Entity Browser, but it can be used also in a WYSIWYG embed context. I can embed something using this very same Entity Browser. And we can also use, if we are creating our custom form, the module provides an Entity Browser form element type that we can just drop it in our custom form, and it will work out of the box. Of course, in this case, I am responsible for receiving the selected entities and doing whatever I need to do with them. But the form element is ready to be used out of the box. Its architecture is completely based on plugins, meaning that all parts of the Entity Browser can be easily extendable. If I just write my own plugin inheriting from the existing one, it will be very easy to extend it. We use inline entity form, the inline entity form module, if we want to use this Entity Browser to create entities at the same time. And yeah, let's see an example of that. This example is the typical related content field, reference field, that is dealing with nodes. In this case, let's create some nodes that relate to other nodes and see how we can use the Entity Browser to improve this editor experience. Instead of having to type in an autocomplete box the title of the related nodes, let's see what we can do. In this case, we can see that we can select from a view an already existing node from the system. And yeah, so the field has the related node. We can add some more values to this field. Instead of selecting from the view, let's create a new one right here in the browser. Here we see as well that this is a different mode of functioning, but it's all of this is configurable. In this case, we are opening an iframe inside the same form. The previous example was a pop-up. All this is configurable. You can have a browser in an iframe. You can have it on a pop-up. You can have many of the characteristics of the Entity Browser are configurable from the UI, just clicking. Okay, so let's move on. The next category of contributed modules are the ones dealing with embedding content into WYSIWYG areas. The entity embed module is the main one that it's meant to embed any entity into WYSIWYG text area. It extends it doesn't reinvent the wheel, it extends the core mechanism for embedding images. What gets embedded is not the rendered HTML of the referenced entity. It's just a metadata relating to the entity. We're going to see an example of how this works and why it's important. And the reference it uses, it's the UUID, meaning that if we are working in a project where we might need to migrate content, it just works out of the box because the entities are referenced by their UUIDs and not the entity IDs. Let's see how this works. In this case, I am embedding one node into another node. the first thing I am creating is just a simple node with an image that I am using to, this will be embedded into the other one. Let's create another one. This is the WYSIWYG, the CK editor WYSIWYG. This is one thing I wanted to just mention. I am using here a standard autocomplete to fetch the node I'm going to reference because I just want to demo the embedding functionality. But as I said before, these parts were meant to work together. So I could just as easily use here the entity browser we just saw before, the same browser, the same experience. So I find the node I want to insert. I can choose, okay, render it as a full content. Now the node is embedded as a full content. I can say, no, I don't want the full content view mode. I want the teaser view mode. And yeah, so the reference node is embedded using the teaser view mode. And if we go back and check, oh yeah, I don't know if you are used to use it, but the contextual menus work both for the host node and the embedded node. They both have their own functional contextual links available. And if we go back to inspect what the HTML is for this thing that's being embedded, we can see that there's no HTML here. We just create a special tag, Drupal entity, with the UUID of the entity we are embedding, because if the entity gets updated, then this will be updated as well. Another use case is where I don't really want to use media entities. I don't want any thing to be an entity in my site, but I still want to embed external content into WYSIWYG areas. I just want my users to be able to embed a YouTube video, for example, or anything that's embeddable. So there's this URL embed module. It allows for any remote content that's embeddable to be inserted into a WYSIWYG area. It doesn't reinvent anything. It's based on a contributed library. This library supports any provider that implements one of these OEmbed, Open Graph, Twitter cards protocols, which is many of the existing webs, good ones, implement one of them. And they both, the entity embed and the URL embed, they both use the same base API for embedding. I am not going to demo this because we are running out of time. But this, if you check the slides later, this is just an example of how you could embed an external content without this content being present at your site at all. Another module which is very handy if you are dealing with images and you want your editors to have an advanced experience with creating cropping effects into the images, is the crop API. In Drupal 8 is the recommended cropping solution. I am not going to stay long time here. This module provides an integration between the Slick carousel library into the media entity module. If at some point you feel obliged to use a carousel or a slideshow in your site, you might want to check this one out. It might be a good solution if you are really in the need of using a slideshow in your site. There is as well a media module, but you probably don't want to use it unless you want to check some examples of how things can be bundled together. This module almost doesn't have any code. It just ships with some default configuration. It assumes some use case, and it just bundles all these parts we were seeing together to people who just want to have a working solution out of the box. They can still use the media module as a working example of everything we just said. These three modules are very good examples of how we can configure the entity browser for specific use cases. The first one for files, the second for nodes, and the third for media entities. They are basic pre-configured browsers with some tweak on the front-end layer to improve UX. Very good examples if we want to learn how to configure entity browsers. If we don't want any of this, but we do want to improve Core's image widget for files, we can just use the Drop.js module, which replaces or gives us the ability to have this big box for dragging and drop the images to our image file widgets. Also, we probably all used some sort of styles applied to our images in Drupal 7. The image cache actions in Drupal 7 now has a successor which is better and integrates also some effects from other modules. And this is the image effects module. You probably already know it. This last one is a very small one, but very handy. If we want to show a referenced entity that's being used in an entity reference field, but we just want to show a single field from the referenced entity, this module provides us from a formatter that does exactly that. So we don't have, we don't need to create a view mode, expose a view mode, a single field on this view mode, and then render the entity on this view mode. This module allows us to fetch a single field from any entity reference field. There are many more tools available, but these are probably the most important ones. I have listed here some source for more information if you want to keep investigating. This is the official documentation. It's not on Drupal.org, it's on this URL, it's a Gitbook. Here you have some videos that cover some specific parts of these modules or this ecosystem. If you are interested in knowing where this is going to in the near future, there are talks that want to move parts of the media ecosystem into core, either 8.3, 8.4, or whenever. This is the main plan for that. It will apparently at some point become part of core, if not all, at least a good part of it, which is good news. At some point in the past, I recorded some video tutorials for very basic site building demos. You can check them out here. If you are using IRC, there is a specific channel for the Drupal media stuff. If you don't want to speak English, there is also probably it's very likely that in the Spanish channel, someone can help you as well. If you are feeling like you want to contribute, all media issues are tagged with this D8 media tag, and the team meets each week in IRC. If you want to help, just pop up and say, hey, I'm here. And that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Let's share our experiences. And here you have the slides. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to comment. Yeah.
Is there any experimental model right now, or is the next release
Yeah, the plan is, if we check that issue, we are going to see that the plan is to move, if time allows, to 8.3, a bunch of these functionalities. some as experimental modules and some as non-experimental modules, because the ones that deal with data storage cannot or should not be experimental, because people will be relying on something that could be changed and could lead to data loss if they are removed. So probably the part that deals with media entity, the media entity itself, is if it gets in, it's going to be a non-experimental module directly because of this reason, because if at some point people are relying on it, it cannot change a lot. But right now there isn't anything in 8.2. There isn't any experimental modules dealing with this. The idea is to have some functionalities in 8.3, if 8.4, if depending on how the contribution goes.
I have two questions. The first one is, ¿puedo preguntar en castellano?
Claro.
La otra, la de verdad es, ¿cómo de estable es actualmente?
¿Cómo de estable? No sé si contestar en castellano. En castellano, bueno, como son diferentes módulos, hay diferentes niveles de desarrollo. Todo lo que se refiere a media entities en sí están estables, ya se están usando mucho en producción. La parte de incrustar en WYSIWYG, embedding, también está bastante avanzada. Lo que está un poco más verde es Entity Browser, porque es la parte más compleja, está en alfa. Me parece que solo hay una issue que es Beta Blocker, que ya está clasificada, están trabajando en ella, que tiene que ver con la integración con Paragraphs y que se va a solucionar relativamente pronto para que se libere la beta en las próximas semanas o días. Eso sería lo que está más verde. Lo demás ya está o bien en beta o en estable. Y existen ya ejemplos de webs en producción, Drupal 8, usando todo eso, incluso Entity Browser. O sea que se recomienda que ya se puede empezar a usar. En algún caso muy puntual puede que exista alguna dificultad, pero en general ya es usable. ¿Algo más? Gracias. Thank you.